Hi guys, so today I'm coming to you with a Rising Sun orientation. We're going to show you how to play, how to set it up, kind of run through the game, and give you hopefully enough to get you started playing your own games. For this tutorial, I am only going to be using the components that come in the base game. I'm not going to be using any of the Kickstarter exclusive components or any of the expansion components. So all of my tokens will be cardboard. So this is going to be basically, if you buy this retail, I'll be using all the same components you'll be able to get retail, but if you have backed it on Kickstarter, some of these components will be deluxe and upgraded. So some of the cardboard pieces I'm using will look different if you have the Kickstarter exclusive bonuses. But I wanted to make something that was universal for everybody who might even get this retail, so that's why I'll be using all of the cardboard components. So the first thing we're going to do is take a closer look at some of the components. So as you're getting set up, one of the first things you're going to do after you pick which color you're going to be is just to gather all of your gameplay components for your particular clan. Now this is going to include all of your miniatures, different tokens, your strongholds, your rings here, your backboard, and then your political and war card here, which we'll talk about all of these in some detail here. So first off, you're going to notice one of your figures should have a black base around it, and that is the daimyo. Now these are just rings, these can come off. But this is just a signal that this is your leader. Think of the daimyo as the boss, right, of your clan. Now you're going to have three Shinto, and they have a white base around them. And you're only going to have three of these. Now think of these guys as priests, or warrior priests, because they can fight and they can pray. And then you're also going to have 6 bushi. Now your bushi are actually going to come in 2 different sculpts. So each faction, and all the sculpts are different. So I have 3 guys with the swords over their heads. And then I have 3 guys here with their swords out to the side. And that's just alternate sculpts. There's no actual gameplay difference between them. Okay. I'm also going to have 2 player tokens. And I'm going to have 4 strongholds tokens. And then I'm going to have several of these rings. And these are for monsters. If I recruit any monsters, I can mark them as my color. And the bases will go in here. Kind of like so. Right, like he would go in there. If he was my monster, I would stick him in there, and then you could tell whose monster it was. We're also going to have this card. Now, this is kind of like a player aid. This is going to talk about all the different political mandates. We'll talk about those more in a second. And then when you flip it over, you're going to flip this over, and then it becomes something useful during war. And we're going to talk about battle. And this becomes like kind of a wagering, and it's a really cool little battle technique. And you're also going to have your board, because when you're going to battle, this is kind of like a screen for you to hide what you're doing. Normally, you're not hiding. You're only hiding what you're doing when it comes to battling. And at the count of 3, everybody will pick their screens up. But most of the time, this is also just a reference because every clan has a different name and a different color. But they also have a clan-specific ability that will also reference on that card. It'll also tell you things like your starting honor rank, where you start out. It's just a good player reference card. And give you like how much money you start with, what end game bonuses you get, and all of that. We're going to look at some of the other cards that are over here. So we have Ronin tokens, and these are just basically to represent these Ronin, these samurai who will fight for you, and they're very good. Let's think about this like extra strength in warfare. You have your gods right here. These are the kami cards, and you're not going to use all of them every game, but you're going to use 4 of them every game. And so you kind of randomize them a little bit, and that's one thing that kind of helps. We have our money. Now the game comes with actual hard plastic tokens, which is really nice. You're going to have some, we've got, I missed one other thing for your player token too. You're also going to have this alliance symbol. And this is something that you can actually pair up with somebody else's when you form an alliance, and they fit into each other just like that. And every player has one matching their color. All right. You're going to have some war number tokens, and they are kind of like this, and they kind of, we'll talk about them when we're setting up the board. But if you're playing with 6 players, you will use all 8. If you're playing with only 5 or less, you will only go up to 5. And so that's what the 4+, 5+, and 6 is for. All right. So, what else do we have? We have our seasonal cards. We've got cards for spring. We've got cards for autumn. We've got cards for summer. Of course, not in that order. Spring, summer, and autumn. And these cards are going to be, we're not going to use all of them in all of the games, but there's another mechanic where we're going to change up the cards we use for each game, and I'll kind of talk about that when I get into setting up the board, which will happen shortly. And we also have some province tokens over here, and we have 3 different stacks of these. One stack will have the Roman numeral 1 on the back of them, the other stack will have the Roman numeral 2 on the back, and the third stack will have the Roman numeral 3 on the back. And basically these are just, they're random, they're going to have each different province on there, and these kind of indicate what are going to be the zones that we might want to do battle in each round. We also have our political mandate cards. These are important. These are basically, there's 2 of every political mandate, and there are different cards like betray, train, harvest, recruit, and they're just different actions. Think of them as actions and things that'll happen during the turn, and yeah, they're pretty cool. So we're going to talk a little bit more about what all of these things do as we get into setting up the gameplay and how a turn goes. Alright, so I'm going to do a sample 3-player setup. You have to have at least 3, so I'm going to be using green, red, and blue. So that's the Turtle Clan, the Koi Clan, and the Dragonfly Clan. And each of these have special abilities. So one of the things that you're going to do first is you're going to grab each clan's token, and you're going, well, there's 2 tokens each, but you're going to grab 1 of each, and they can also stack, and they're really nicely designed so that they can stack on top of each other. And you're going to start right along the bottom here, where the little rising sun logo is here in the bottom left corner, and you're going to start on this. These are victory points, and so this is a victory point game. It's going to play through 4 seasons. At the end of winter, whoever has the most victory points will be the winner. And really, you play through 3 seasons. You play through spring, summer, and autumn, and then winter happens. So you're not really playing through winter. Winter is kind of end game. So almost think like Game of Thrones. Like when winter comes, it's game over. So you're going to do that. One of the other things you're going to do is you're going to determine starting honor. And so honor is important because this is the honor track up here, and honor is going to basically give you tiebreaker status. And because a lot of stuff in this game is going to involve ties, your position on the honor track is actually important. Now, it does have enough to play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different players. So you can, you can have up to 6 different people playing this at the same time. If you have expansions, the base game only plays 5. But so if you wanted to start by looking at your honor track, you're going to notice that Koi starts with honor 1. So that means they're going to be at the top. Now, Turtle Clan starts with honor 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 down here. And then the Dragonfly Clan starts with honor 5. So they're going to actually start at the bottom. Now, once you determine all that, you're going to line them up so they're always adjacent. And anytime somebody moves up, they bump somebody else down. Anytime somebody goes to the top, they bump everybody down. And so it kind of works like that. But it's important to know these starting positions. And there we go. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to kind of figure out what seasonal cards we're going to go with. So these seasonal cards here, so I have spring. Okay, so if you'll notice on the back, the first couple are just normal, but then we have 3 different subsets that have a symbol on here. We got a guy on a horse, and then we've got a little teapot, and then we've got the tower over here, or whatever that's called. And so these all represent 3 different ways that you can play the game. And each of the seasons has the exact same subset. So the idea here is you're going to combine your base set of cards with one of these. So let's say we wanted to go with the guy on the horse. I think the game actually suggests you go with the teapot for your first game. We're going to go with the guy on the horse. All right, and so you're going to take both of these and you're going to just combine them together. You don't actually have to shuffle. You're just going to set them in a pile. And you're going to do the same thing for summer. I'm going to get all our base cards, and I keep them sorted just so I don't have to dig through them. And then I'm going to combine this with my guy on the horse, and then I'm going to do the same thing for autumn. Autumn, and then guy on a horse. Okay. So now we've got, these are the cards we're going to play with. The rest of the cards, we can set them aside. We're not going to use those. And if you get any expansions or whatever, they're going to actually go into, you can include those with all of these and everything else you're doing. You just add on. You don't have to swap anything out. And so now that we know we're going to have spring, what we're going to do is we're going to actually flip them over. We can set summer and autumn up here. We're not using those yet because we're going to start in spring. And what we're going to do is we're going to flip these over and kind of just set them somewhere. So I can set them up here. I've got courage. I've got 2 courages. I've got 2 We have the righteous, and basically the way this works is you're going to have, for 4 of them, you're going to have doubles, and for the other 4, you're going to have a single. And we'll talk more about how you get these cards, but think of these cards as like if you were going to the shop and you were going to buy something. So some of these cards are abilities, like every time you lose like righteousness, for each of your figures that is killed, you gain a victory point. You know, and there's 2 copies of that, right? And, you know, these are cool upgrades. But then some of them are the Oni of Skulls, and you know, that has the cost up here on how much you want to, you know, how much it costs. So this one costs two money, and you know, he's a monster. And when you buy him, you get to go pick the appropriate. Which one is he? Is he this one? No, he's not this one. He's right there. So you'll get this guy, and he'll be, you know, he'll go on the board, and he'll be a dude for you. And if you have the least honor, he's going to count as 3 force. Force is something, every mini counts as 1 force, but he basically is as strong as 3 different guys. You know, and so this will go up here too. So I'm just going to set these cards, and this is kind of like our shop. So anytime some people can go buy stuff, they can buy one of those cards. And those come down to political mandates, like what we were talking about before. The next thing we're going to do is we are going to determine our 4 gods, or our 4 kami. And what they tell you to do is just shuffle the kami deck and deal out the 4 from left to right, and you're going to go 1, 2, 3, and 4. There is a recommended starting order in the instruction booklet. I think they wanted you to have, you know, I'm not going to actually do it, but I think they want you to have Amaterasu, Tsukuyomi. I think it was, gosh, is it Ryujin? No, I think it's, I don't know. I'm going to go Hachiman and Fujin for right now. Okay, so those are the 4 gods, 4 kami that we're going to have. Now, and these are going to change every game. It's just a way to make things different. And what they are, they each have different symbols on them. It's when you send your priests up to pray, whoever has the most. Again, there's a lot of, you know, there'll be like maybe 1 from, you have 1 on something, somebody else has 1 on something, and tiebreakers are going to become very important. So, you know, this is like kind of very much an area control game. You have, obviously, you have the different areas over here, but you also, these are considered areas. Whoever has the most priests praying, for example, you know, is the only one that's going to gain the benefit. And if there's a tie, it's going to look to the honor track, and that's what's always going to break ties. So honor is very important because you don't have like 300 minis. You know, you've got 10, and that's it. You know, so you really have to be very careful on where you put stuff and where your honor is if you're going to think you're going to have to break some ties. Okay. The other thing is you're going to take your political mandate deck, which is all of these. Again, these are something that if you got the Kickstarter, you're going to have a nicer version of these, but these are the cardboard ones. And there's 2 of every action. You're just going to shuffle this up and have this setting off to the side. All right. You are also going to take your province tokens. You set your group of 3. The 3 is going to be for autumn. The ones that start with the 2 on top are going to be for summer. And then the ones that have the 1 on top are going to be for spring. And we're going to do those first. And you'll basically shuffle these, and you're going to deal these right here. We're going to deal 1 through 5. So in this case, it's going to be Kayushi, which is right here, and Ido, which is right here, Oshu, which is right here, and Kanzai, which is right here, and Shikoku, which is right here. Now, this means that these are the only zones that we will be doing warfare in, and so, and you know, and they're going to happen in a certain order. So I can put this little 1 here for Kyushu. That means that's going to be a highly contested zone. So you're going to, you know, and the same thing goes for Ido, and then Oshu, boom, right here, and then Kanzai, and Shikoku. And any zone that doesn't have a number, so for Nagato, for example, we're not going to do battle in Nagato. So having the majority here, or having a lot of force here, won't necessarily be as valuable, at least during this season. This is something you're going to do each season, so it can change. And one of the things that you're going to want to make sure you do is every clan kind of has this little reminder here on their card. And basically for a number of different province tokens you control, because if you win one of these, you're going to take this token, and it's going to count as 1 victory point at the end of the game if it's one of the Roman numeral 1s, or if it's got 2 of them, it'll count as 2 victory points. If it's got 3 of them, it'll count as 3 victory points. So basically, fighting later in the game is more valuable than fighting earlier in the game, but you also want to try to have as many different colored tokens. So if you already win in Kyushu on the first round, winning again in Kyushu later in the game isn't as valuable for you, because if you can manage to get 7 or 8 different wins from all the different zones, then you can get 30 extra victory points, and that's going to be huge. I don't imagine that that's going to be a very common thing. I think it's more likely people will get like 4 or maybe 5 if they're lucky. All right, so now one of the things we're going to do is we're going to identify a starting province. A starting province is going to go according to where your player card says. And also you need to sit in order too, because you should be seated such that whoever has the most honor is actually going to be first player, and you're kind of going down that road. So it should be red first, then green, and then blue in this case. That's kind of where you want to be seated around the table. So red will get 1 Shinto, 1 Daimo, and 1 Bushi, and a stronghold. And think of these strongholds as bases. This is something else that's upgraded in the Kickstarter to actually be like little castles, and they're really nice. And so when you are, like strongholds are good because that's where your reinforcements show up. And so we're going to do that. Everybody's going to start in their own province. So I'll go ahead and get that set up. So now we've got everybody set up, we're going to do the tea ceremony, which is basically an opportunity for people to try to get alliances. Now the problem is, it can be tough if you're playing an odd numbered people, because you can only be allied with one other person. So potentially green and blue might forge an alliance, and they would be allied. And this will last 1 season, so next turn you can potentially ally with somebody else. So if you are playing like a 3 or a 5 player game, and you are the one person who doesn't get an alliance, don't feel too bad, because you can always try again on the next round. So let's say for the sake of things, red might say to green, hey, you're really close to me. Are you trying to take over my territory? How about if we form an alliance, so this way I won't be there for you, and I won't, that I'm not trying to, take over your stuff. And you can move into somebody else's stuff if you're not allied with them, but still, at the end, you may end up going to war. You may end up doing battle. So it's, it can be a little bit testy, so talking across the table, role-playing a little bit, it really kind of lends a lot to this game. So let's say green decides, you know what, no, I'm not really worried about you, I'm more worried about blue, because blue, the Dragonfly clan, their special ability is like when they move, they can move anywhere on the board. Whereas normally moving, you have to go somewhere adjacent, or there are some lines here where you can go by boat, the shipping lines. So like Kansai here, it's actually good because it can go to Shikoku, it can go to Kyushu, and it can go all the way up here, and it's also adjacent to here and here, right? Whereas like Nagato, for example, is only adjacent to Kansai. So like this is a really fortified position. It's really safe right here. But then again, you got blue that can just drop in from anywhere. So blue is kind of scary. So green decides, you know what, I'm going to ally with blue. These two will forge an alliance. Now what does this mean? Well, this means a couple of different things. If we're doing battle, if we go to war against each other or in the same zone, let's say, because you can have multiple different units. Let's say we had green, red, and blue all in the same zone, and they have a big battle. Well, let's say blue wins. If blue wins, everybody else is dead. Okay. Now, if that is the case, if everybody else dies, then if they're allied with green, then green doesn't have to die. So green will stay there. So that's good. Although they still do combat for the sake of the mechanics of everything, and that's important to note. But the other thing, the most important thing, is that when you get to these political mandates, which is one of the first things that we're going to do, when we do these political mandates, when you play an action, it's one of those deals where everybody at the table gets the benefit of the action that you played, but you and your ally get an even better version of it. So having an alliance is great because it's effectively like a double action. In a lot of cases. And it's all talked about here on the political mandates card, and we're going to kind of go over them. So the first one we've got is recruit. And recruit, there's two of everything in the deck. Recruit allows basically you to summon one of your figures at each of your strongholds. Like everybody starts off with one stronghold. You can get more, right? Well, But for you and an ally, for you and your ally, you get to summon one additional. So like if we were to do a recruit right away, let's say green did a recruit, green would get to put an extra guy down. And blue, because he's allied with green, would get to also put an extra guy down. Well, they'd get to do 2 each, and red would only get 1. Now, there's also an order to this as well. And the order is important because if green does it, and let's say we're going green, blue, red, because we're going in order. If it's green's turn, green actually does it last. And that gives green the most tactical advantage. So green would say, okay, I played recruit. So then blue is like, okay, well, I'll put 2 guys down right there. Then red's turn, red would say, I'll put my 1 guy down. And then green gets his 2. Because green and blue are allied, they get 1 extra. And now green, like if they were spread out more, I'm like, oh, you built up over here. Well, instead I'm going to put my guys over here. But you can only do that where you have a stronghold. Also, the cool thing about green's special ability is that their strongholds are built on giant turtles, and they can move. And they literally can move just like people, whereas everybody else's strongholds are stationary. So that's kind of a fun thing about green. Kind of like that. And their turtles can do battle too, which is, they count as 1 force, which is fun. So that's recruit. Let's talk about marshal. Marshal is a good one. Marshal allows everybody to move. Okay, each of your figures, you can move them across a border or a shipping route. So for example, we start off with, we all have 3. One of the things that we can do is, let's say I'm red, and then it's going to be green and then blue. If I play marshal, green gets to move one of their figures. 1, 2, 3. They can move. Now you don't have to move, but you can. And also they can also move their turtle if they wanted to do that. And they get to move all that stuff. And then blue gets to move, and then red gets to move. But also for you and ally, the bonus of that is you can build an additional stronghold for 3 money. And everybody gets a starting money. So we'll all have, 5, 6, or whatever. And all the clans have a different amount of starting money. So that's nice to, building extra strongholds is really good, because when you go back to the recruit action, when somebody plays a recruit, you get, even more people for that. And so if I have like 3 or 4 strongholds out, somebody else is much less likely to want to play recruit, because they know that they're going to probably help me even more than they help themselves. Okay, so let's go to train. Train is a little bit different. Train actually is the only one that you go first, whereas in all the other ones you go last for strategic advantage. Well, in the case of train, going first is good because we've got all these cards up here, and it lets you, basically it's a buy action. You go to the shop and buy any card you want. So for example, I could buy courage, which is, gives me an extra, 2 diplomacy every time I gain a war province tokens when I battle. So if I'm going to go very military like, maybe I want to get courage. That one costs 3 though. Or I can gain some war upgrades, which is red. So you have virtues that are in blue, war upgrades that are in red. You have enhancements that are in green, and then you have monsters which are in brown. So maybe I wanted to be, get this Komanu. And he's one of the monsters. I would buy that card that would come to my area. I would immediately get and place the monster. Monsters are cool because you keep them for the whole game, unless they get killed. But then also some of these things are really nice, like Path of the Ninja is a dishonorable upgrade, is an enhancement. These are probably permanent buffs. After I basically summon means like put any unit onto the board, I may kill any 1 Bushi on the map and lose an honor. Now honor is important, but it's not the only thing in the game. Sometimes it's worth it to lose a little bit of honor, because there's ways to get it back, and we'll talk about that when we go to the gods, because that's one of the best ways to get honor back. But if you go as a ninja, you can be taking people out right away. So it could be a nice threat to say, hey, don't mess with me, because I will. It says you may kill a Bushi, so you don't even have to. Or the other enhancement they have is Path of the Lion here. Your Daimo has +1 force. Remember how the Daimo is the one in the black. It's kind of like your leader. Now every miniature has 1 force, which is basically a strength of 1. They count as 1 point when, comparing for combat strength. When we get into combat, force will make more sense. But this makes your Daimo count as though he was as strong as 2 guys, which is great, especially if you don't want to have a whole lot of guys out there on the board. Because you only have so many, so making 1 count as 2 is actually a pretty significant thing. All right, so that's train, and the cool thing is, every season you're going to have all new cards. So at the end of spring, we're going to take all these cards away. Whatever didn't get bought goes away, and then we're going to deal out all the summer cards, and then rinse and repeat. And then once summer's over, we're going to deal out all the autumn cards, and the cards just get better and better. So so that much is really cool. All right, so next is Harvest. Harvest is a good one. So Harvest gives everybody money. Everybody gets $1, 1 coin, right? So, but the real benefit of Harvest is you and your ally. You collect rewards from each province where you have a superior force. So every province here on the board, in addition to having its little round number, if it's where we're going to fight, also has a symbol in here with some rewards in it. So let's say we were like that, and like that. Okay, I just spread out the board a little bit. Blue has the only force here, so blue would gain a victory point, which is the symbol here. Would also gain a Ronin, which are these tokens here, and these are also upgraded in the Kickstarter version, but they're little guys with a sword. And these are permanent. Ronin are really good. And we'll talk about Ronin a little bit more as well. And a money. So this one's kind of well-rounded. Whereas in Shikoku is just 3 money, if you control that. If you control Nagato, you get 1 of each. If you control Kansai, you get 3 victory points, which is really nice. If you control Kyoto, you get 4 victory points, so Kyoto is really, really nice. If you control Idu, you get 2 money and 2 victory points. If you control Oshu, you get 3 money. And if you control Hokkaido, up here, you get 2 Ronin. So every province offers something slightly different. But I think the ones that are harder to maintain control of, the ones that have lots of borders, give you more of a reward for holding on to it, like, for example, Kyoto here. So, interesting stuff. Victory points are how you win the game, so if you can get like 4 victory points in a Harvest, that's awesome. Definitely do it. But again, now the Harvest bonus only works for you and your ally. So, that's one of those, like if you're playing a 6-player game, there's only 2 Harvests per season. So you play a Harvest, that means 4 people aren't going to be able to get any of that stuff. Only you and your ally get them. So this is a great way to thank your friend for being an ally to you. And then the last one is Betray. So Betray is a tough one. Betray will break your alliance. Betray also will, you also lose honor if you have an alliance and you break it. But what it does, it's very powerful. Basically, think of this as like the stealth ninjas, in the middle of the night. So I'm going to put all the guys back in their starting positions. And what Betray does, it lets you target 2 opponents, 2 different opponents. You can't do it to the same person. And you can replace one of their minis with one of your minis. The rule is it has to be the same type of mini. So if it's a Bushi that you're replacing, you replace it with one of your Bushi. If it's a Shinto that you're replacing, you replace it with one of your Shinto. And they can come out of your reserve, which means they're your minis that aren't yet on the board. So if you, for example, have all of your stuff on the board, you wouldn't want to Betray. And then Betray is also unique because this one doesn't give your ally any bonus. In fact, it makes you break your alliance, like I said before. So this one is only for you. So if you are the one person that didn't get an alliance, you may want to consider doing some betrayal and all those people that trash talked to you earlier kind of get back at them. And so another cool thing about Betrayal is later in the game, if you've had some monsters that have been destroyed or whatever, you can replace somebody else's monster with your monster. And so that's one way to get your monsters back on the board if they somehow get killed. So that much is pretty cool. So what's going to happen at the beginning of the first turn? You're going to do the tea ceremony, you're going to forge your alliances, and once those alliances are forged, you're going to go on to the next step, which is going to be the first, political mandate phase. Now, this track right here is going to guide you through each season. And basically, you get 3 turns of political mandate, then you have a kami phase, 2 turns of political mandate, kami phase, 2 more turns of political mandate, kami phase, and then warfare. So you have a lot of build-up before the fight. And the way the political mandate phase is, this first player is going to draw 4 of these cards, the top 4, and he's going to look at them. In this case, I've got 2 harvests, a marshal, and a train. So if I'm the red player, I don't have an alliance with any of these people, so maybe I want to use one of the harvests so that they don't just harvest back to back and screw me completely out of it. So I might play a harvest, it'll go right there. and then I take them, the ones, and then we've resolved harvest. So in this case, everybody gets some money. I would take my money, and then I would collect rewards from everywhere that I control. Now, realistically, harvest isn't that great for the first turn, for the first mandate, just because of the fact that you kind of want to move first and spread out, so that way you can, especially as the red player, because I can break ties. So if I put a guy there, and I get a guy, if I was able to spread out a little bit, you'd have to have two people to win, because even if you moved one person in there, I would still control it, because I would break all the ties, having the top honor. Okay? And that's how that works. Then we're going to do all of this, and it's going to go to the next person. And then, so in that case, green, and I put these back in the same order, too. I don't shuffle them back in. So green's going to know what I passed up. And so green is going to draw those same four and be like, oh, he had these three, and then they're here. So maybe green will play a marshal, will follow and do all those things that we just talked about here. And then it goes to blue, and then blue might want to break his alliance, and since he already got his bonus from green, then blue will betray, which would shatter the alliance, and then green will remember that, and then blue does some stuff. Once that happens, we go to a kami phase. So what I should have done is I should have done a train action instead of betray, just so I can demonstrate what kami phase is. So when you train, you can summon guys, right? I'm sorry, that's not train. That's when you recruit. I didn't get a recruit card. So let's say we did recruit instead of train. When you do a recruit, you can summon guys. Now, the Shinto, when you summon them, they can go straight up to one of the gods as their area. Normally, you have to summon people where you have a stronghold. In the case of blue, it's here. But let's say blue wanted to recruit somebody to go up to Amaterasu, for example. Now he controls Amaterasu, so he has the most prayer. So like think of these kami as they only care about who loves them the most. Now if red were to also send somebody up here, red would break the tie there. So then blue would want to maybe later on send another one up to break that tie. And this can happen for all of the kami. So I'm going to say, let's say it ended up like this. And I want to have one more blue out there. Okay. So in the case of there being, we get to a kami phase and all of these guys are out here, we're going to go from left to right. You always go from left to right. And you're going to count up who's got the most number of force. And every mini by default counts as one force. So Amaterasu is going to, what her special ability is she's going to send you to the top of the honor scale. So by praying to Amaterasu, you get your honor back. So that means blue would win that one. We'll go all the way up to the top, bumping red down one and bumping green down one. Or if you were in a 6-player game, you bump everybody down one. Now that changes things because now all of a sudden blue is now the tiebreaker. Because red thought he had Hachiman in the bag here, but now blue is going to break that tie. So then we'll go to green, or to Tsukiyomi. Tsukiyomi, whoever has the most here gets 2 coins. And again, there's a reference picture on each of the kami cards telling you what you get from them. And you're going to gain these bonuses 3 different times each season. And so that much is nice. So in that case, green would get 2 coins. And then we would go to Hachiman, which red thought they had. But now all of a sudden, since you do these in order, those things can change. So Hachiman is actually going to get 2 Ronin tokens. And Ronins are almost permanent upgrades to your military strength if you can afford them. And so then we'll set that by blue. So blue has Ronin, and then Fujin didn't have anybody, so you can ignore that. But Fujin would let you take 2 moves. So you could either move one person and then another person, or you could move one person once and then move one person again. So Fujin is very nice for mobility. Especially somebody like Idu, who starts all the way here in a corner and really needs to move to, and that's kind of one of the things that helps balance gameplay as well, is that red may have the advantage of starting out with the most honor, but they also have the hardest time trying to break out and explore other parts of the world. So let's talk about, and so after we get to this kami phase, we're going to do 2 more political mandates, then another kami, 2 more political mandates, and then a kami. And then after that last kami, we're going to go to warfare. And basically the way warfare works is we're going to do these one at a time. We have 1, we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, where we marked our tokens. And we're going to do these one at a time. So we'll start with Kyushu, Now, the rule is if there's nobody there, then this just gets discarded. We'll take this one off. It's done. However, if, let's say, green has somebody there, well, they automatically win it. If you have force there, you win. And that's one of the nice things about green is their strongholds, and they move them, they do count as one force. So green doesn't even have to leave a mini behind. It can leave a turtle behind. And they would win that. The problem comes is when we have, if we have different factions there. So let's say green and blue still had an alliance. If green and blue still had the alliance, they wouldn't have to do battle because they're in an alliance together. They wouldn't have to fight each other, but they would be tied. So then you'd go to honor, and whoever's higher on the honor track would break the tie and would win this token. And these you're gonna save these to the end of the game. Like, is this got a 1 here? This is gonna be worth 1 victory point at the end of the game. But also you're gonna count it as one of your provinces. So if you manage to get at least 3, you're gonna get some other kind of bonus for the end of the game as well. Now, the problem is when we come into different factions. So let's say we have green versus red. Now all of a sudden we've got a problem because we've got to do some battle. So here is when we take our political mandates card and we flip it over to do battle. So we flipped these over, and I'm going to talk about all of these different symbols that are on here and what they do and why they're important. But it's important to know that they're going to go from left to right. Now the first thing you need to do is, it's going to be public knowledge how much you have as far as money and Ronin. Now Ronin represent potential strength. So think of these as, you have some contracted samurai that might work for you if you can afford them. They might. But it's public knowledge how much you own. So you don't put these behind your screen, you set them off to the side. And if somebody asks you, wait, how much money do you have again? You have to tell them how much you have available. Because that goes into the whole mind game here. So in this case we've got 3, let's say we have 3 green soldiers versus 3 force of green and 1 force of red. So it looks like green has the advantage, but red can do a number of different things. So in secret, we're going to start setting, we can put coins on these things, right? I can put coins here, 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 or here, and I can put as many as I want. I can put all my money into this battle on how I want it to come out. So the first one is seppuku. Seppuku is basically all of your miniatures there commit ritual suicide. You may kill all of your figures and gain a victory point and honor for each one that's there. If it's a battle I know I'm going to lose, I might want to consider just putting some money into seppuku. Okay? And I might want to make sure I get it. So maybe I'll put 2 money there. Because, again, this is another thing where tiebreakers matter. Whoever has the most money is the only one that gets to do it. We're not going to both commit suicide. Could you imagine 2 armies running up to each other and they both stab each other in the stomach and both fall down and nobody wins? So only one person's going to get any one of these. So if I do that, then my force is gone. The second thing, once you get past seppuku, if nobody, if one side doesn't completely surrender, you have the option to take hostages. And what will happen in that case is you're going to take, let's say I took a hostage from green. I would take one of their miniatures off. I would put it in my area. It's now a hostage, and they lose 1 victory point. I gain 1 victory point. Basically, you steal a victory point from them. So you +1 to you, -1 to your enemy. And then they lose this guy, and they'll get him back at the next teapot ceremony. They get him back next turn, but you take him hostage for a little while. And the other good thing about that is that they are also -1 force now for the rest of this battle. Next is higher Ronin. Basically, if you win the higher Ronin bid, you can add your Ronin, and that's why it's also important for your opponent to know how many Ronin you have. Because let's say I didn't take hostage, it's 3 to 1 right now. But if I win higher Ronin, then I get to add my 3, and that means I'll have 4 to 3. So that means I'll actually be the winner. Okay, so that's important. If you get past that part, you have the battle outcome, and that means whoever wins kills all the other guys there. Okay. So after the battle outcome, then you have Imperial Poets. So if you won for Imperial Poets, that means you gain a victory point for every figure that was killed in the battle, regardless of how they died, whether it was from from being killed in the battle outcome, or even if it was seppuku. So in theory, I could put money on seppuku and Imperial Poets. Like I wanted to write a song or a poem, an epic poem about how all my guys knew they were going to lose, and rather than face dishonor, they went ahead and they took their own life. So it could be something like that. But the problem is you don't know what everybody else is going to bid. So, and you're going to lose this money too. And what's worse, the loser, their money goes to the other person. So let's say I got and I just put all my money into Hire Ronin. All right, let's say I put 4 into that. Well, let's say my opponent put 5 into Hire Ronin, and they had more money than I did. And well, that would mean that they get to add their Ronin, and I don't get to add my Ronin. So they would beat me. They would win the war. They would take the card. I would lose all of my guys. Bad stuff. It might have been smarter for me to at least leave 1 in Imperial Poets. So this way I'll at least gain some victory points for whoever dies. But then again, if my opponent has 2 money in Imperial Poets, then then they would also win that one too. So this is basically once you have everything decided where you want it to be, like maybe I was just going to go here and here, and my opponent was going to hire a Ronin, which would be a big waste. We would both reveal, and we pull these up, and we're like, oh, you did that, and you do that. And so you start to resolve from left to right. It's important to note that if you do take hostages, let's say green did take hostages and took my only guy there hostage, the battle may not necessarily be over, because if I still hired Ronin, then I would still add 3 force, because the samurai can fight even without one of my bushi there. So then it would be 3 versus 3, and I would actually break that tie, so the Ronin could come win the war for me. They're like cell swords, if you watch Game of Thrones or anything like that. Well, I mean, it's not really a Game of Thrones exclusive term, but it's pretty cool the way that can work. And that's kind of how combat's only going to happen when something is contested. If you have an ally in the zone, they all have to do the same stuff as well. So they have to go through all these same things. They're just not going to kill your characters. However, if you do take hostage, you can actually take the hostage of an allied character, which is going to be bad because they're going to remember that. You might not get an alliance with them again. So you probably want to hold true to your word, but this game does totally allow you to double cross and betray people. Another thing I didn't mention before is I like to set the monsters off to the side just so that everybody can see them, because they're beautiful and they look awesome, and it's just a good quick reference. Now, a lot of them are Oni, and so I want to talk about like just some of the other cards you'll see in summertime, because once we get all the way through, and this we're gonna go to the next season. We'll dish out all of the summer cards. We'll kind of do this whole thing again with we'll pick up all the mandates. But you've got the Yuri here, which counts as a daimyo with 2 force. That one's fun. The Oni of Blood, and there's a lot of them are Onis. And the cool thing about Onis is they always are stronger if you have the least honor. So maybe that's one strategy you might want to consider, is if you're in an odd numbered game and you don't have that much. As far as not being able to get alliances, maybe you just say, screw it, I'm going to stay at the bottom for the honor, and just have a really strong army of demons. And the cool thing about that is because like in the autumn cards, in the last set of cards, like there's this really cool card, and this is just from the Knight on Horseback, so this is not going to be in every game, but at the end of the game, one of these is Form of the Demon. You gain 3 victory points for each Oni you have, so that's like a really, really strong. And this is a winter upgrade, and winter upgrades is another type of card that basically just means this does nothing for you right now. This is something that is going to be revealed at the end of the game, so once we're all counting up victory points. And then Form of the Kitsune, which is like the fox in Japanese. 3 victory points for each stronghold you have. So you might want to try to make sure you can get, and there's 2 of those, right? So of course not everybody can get these. So the more players you have, the more these cards are going to be harder to get. Look at the River Dragon here. It counts as 5 force. And so there's a card for all of them, and they're going to tell you what they do on the card. Most of them are pretty much self-explanatory. But I like that you're going to go with your base cards, and then you add these ones in, and it just totally allows for really easy expansions, and just to change the game up a little bit every time. For example, we're not going to necessarily have these 2 Onis and then Form of the Oni in every game. So Onis, it might only be a theory when we're doing, it might be a valid strat only when we're using this guy, But that again, there's certain things that could make that harder. Like if you don't have certain deities or whatever that can always influence your strat. So there's a lot of different combinations of different ways that you can run this. So yeah, I think we've kind of run through one season, and that's just how it's going to the general feel of the game. And you're going to keep moving these things across as you gain victory points. When you gain them during the game, you're going to move them right away, and then the winter upgrades, you're going to add some more of those at the end of the game. You're also going to count up how many different province tokens you've got, and gain your victory points from end of game bonuses for battle as well. So a lot of really fun stuff going on here. I feel like with the monsters being on the board, even if you may not be in a position to win, you can still do some really fun stuff and really have a big force, and maybe just try to get all the Onis, or maybe just try to do betrayal and screw up other people's plans. And I think there's just so much fun that can go into a game like this without you necessarily having to have the best strategy to win. And I think that's a really good important thing, because I look at a lot of board games as like, do they have some kind of achievement unlocked kind of fun factor? Like, even if I can't win, especially if you're playing a 6-player game and there can only be one winner, am I still going to be able to have a good time? Am I still going to be able to maybe do something that's challenging to do? Can I still build the Death Star, for example, right? And maybe getting this giant dragon would be kind of that equivalent, right? Or maybe having an army full of demons just march through and wreck everybody. But yeah, but you have to be careful though. Like having no more strength is going to be great, but like one of the things I think I touched on before is like, if you win a battle, the loser gets all the money you spent on your on your war advantages. So you don't necessarily want to just rely on having a lot of money and spending it all. You have to be so tactical on so many of these decisions you make. I think it's going to be just I think this game is going to have a lot of life. I think there's a lot of variation, and I haven't even dug into all the Kickstarter stuff, the Kami Unbound expansion, the other factions that are out there, all the extra monsters. There's so much more to this game, and I can't wait to just play all of it. So thank you guys so much for watching. I do want to remind everybody that there is a round of a giveaway going on right now where you can win an expansion or a game of your choice in the form of a $20 Cool Stuff gift card. And the only thing you need to do to enter that is to be a subscriber and leave a comment on this or one of my videos. It's as simple as that, guys. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments what you think. Were you considering backing this one on Kickstarter? Or maybe, I think there's enough in here that you can really have a good time with it, even as retail. But I am a big fan of components, so I like the upgraded components that came with the Kickstarter version, so I can get rid of some of this cardboard and replace them with plastic. That much will be a lot of fun. Thank you guys again so much for watching, and have a great day.